Welcome to our Janome Sew-Along, sponsored by Janome and Classic Sewing Magazine, and featuring this fabulous Continental M17 sewing and embroidery machine. During this sew-along, we will be creating these two in-the-hoop projects that will be perfect for back to school. The first project is a notebook cover that perfectly fits a composition notebook and has a built-in pocket on the front for your favorite pen or pencil. It also features inside pockets on each sleeve that will hold smaller items and notes. The embellishments, though, definitely make this project shine. On the front, we have an automatic monogram that is built into our Continental M17, as well as various smaller designs. And on the back, we utilize the polka dots of the fabric to showcase spirograph type designs that are also built into our Continental M17. With so many built-in designs from which to choose, the embellishment possibilities are endless. Our second project is a matching pencil case that is large enough to hold a wide variety of items that you may need during your studies. With the clear vinyl window on the front, everything is easy to find no matter how many things you have inside. And though we did not embellish our case, you can use the techniques that you learn while making this notebook cover to add as much embroidery to yours as you would like. So we are going to start our sew-along by going over some of the supplies that you will want to gather and our first steps in getting the pieces ready for our notebook cover. So let me get set up here and we will get started. So to get started, we are going to go over some of the supplies that you may want to gather in order to make these beautiful back-to-school projects. So what I have in front of me is a few of the notions and some of the stabilizers that we will need because these are in the hoop projects. So your stabilizers, we need to be fairly picky about your stabilizers as well as everything else. Some of these notions are optional, and we will talk about that as we go through the project. So what I have here is, the first thing I have is a 10 Sisters piping ruler. This ruler is used to cut down the seam allowance of piping when you make it and when you purchase it both. We need a 1/4 inch seam allowance on our piping, so we'll want to be able to cut that down. And the easiest way to do is using one of these tools. I will show you how to use it when we get to that portion of our project. Then we have some temporary spray adhesive. This one is Silky KK2000. I love this one because you spray it and a few hours later it is completely gone. There are some temporary sprays like quilt sprays and some others that will actually stick around for a little while. And so that's why I like this one, is because it doesn't stick around. And so once you're finished, it'll dissipate for you, and then you won't have any worries about any sticky getting on your needles and so forth going forward in your project. Then here we have some temporary tape. This is Whimsy tape. It could be any sort of a tape that is easy to remove and low residue, so it doesn't leave any sticky behind, and it just comes off easily. We use this to place things, fabrics and vinyl and so forth, in our hoop, and it keeps them in place until we stitch them down, and then we can easily remove the tape without pulling anything back off of our hoop. Now, the other two things I have here are very small. These come with our Janome Continental M17 machine. You can use either one of these feet for your piping, and it is going to depend on whether you choose to use a regular piping cord or a mini piping cord. Now for mine, I have chosen to use a mini piping cord. Now this is a regular zipper foot. This is an E foot for our Janome Continental M17. This is an invisible zipper foot. And what I like about this one, you can see on the front here, there are a couple of grooves that would normally hold the teeth of our zippers out of the way in order to insert an invisible zipper. Our mini piping cord actually fits perfectly into those grooves as well. So it's a perfect foot if you are using mini piping, and it comes with your Continental M17. So there's nothing extra to purchase there. Now, I have 2 pairs of scissors. These scissors are going to be used for an optional applique, the monogram applique that is on the front of the composition notebook cover. These two are a couple of my favorites. This one here actually comes in a smaller version. It's a little bit shorter, that I also really love. But these are both curved. And so if I turn this to the side, you can see that this is a curved pair of scissors. It also has a blunt tip. So what that does for you is the curve allows you to hold this flat in your hoop so that you aren't having to kind of move your wrist underneath the edges of your hoop or anything like that. And the blunt tip allows you to cut around curves and corners without cutting anything that you don't want to cut. The other one here is also curved. So if I turn it to the side, you can see that it is curved as well. But the difference is here that this one has this duck bill on it. These are usually called duck bill applique scissors. What this allows you to do is to have this underneath your fabric and this piece on top of your fabric when they're open. And then when you go to cut your fabric, this will keep you from cutting into the fabric that is below your applique fabric, which you do not want to cut. Okay, so both of those work really well. The one thing about the duckbill scissors that can get in the way sometimes, but won't on our particular applique, is if you're trying to go into into little corners, and then usually sometimes that gets in the way. But other than that, they're very good for keeping you from cutting what you don't want to cut, which is fabulous for applique. Then, moving forward here, I have a glue pen and refills. You always want refills to go with your glue pen. We use this glue pen to hold down all kinds of stuff, and they are fabulous for in the hoop embroidery, especially when we need to hold down small pieces like our piping, where it's harder to use pins or tape where you need to have your stitching. So glue works fabulous, and we love this. This is our sew line glue pen and refills, and we have these around all of the time. We just keep them right next to our machine because you never know when you're going to use one. So you definitely want one of those. And then the last notion that I have here is a turning tool. Now, this is my favorite turning tool. This is an R&K precision turning tool. What I like about it is that it's nice and hefty. It's metal, so it's very hefty. But at the tip here, it has a ball point. And that ball point really does try to keep you from poking through your corners. You still can. You still have to be careful. It's not going to totally prevent it. But it does help quite a bit for turning out corners and turning them out nicely. It's a small ball tip, so it can turn out a corner very nicely, but it won't go through the corner as easily as the pointed point turners will, okay? Now, the other thing that I told you that we needed to pay attention to for this project is going to be our stabilizers. And we really do need to pay attention for this because these are in the hoop projects. And so on some of them you can remove stabilizer, on others you can't. Some of them you have to remove the stabilizers, others you don't. So what I have here, this top stabilizer here, this is a cutaway stabilizer. It's a medium weight cutaway stabilizer. It is going to be used for our notebook cover. It stays in the notebook cover forever. And so it actually adds a little bit of stability to your notebook cover, as well as being a stabilizer for your embroidery. Then here below that, I have a medium weight tearaway stabilizer. This could also be a lightweight tearaway stabilizer. I found in doing these though that I really do like the medium weight tearaway stabilizer. What we're going to do with this, it's also going to be used for the notebook cover. We are going to float it underneath our hoop when we go to do the decorative stitching, because the decorative stitching is a lot more substantial than all of our straight stitching that is used to do the in the hoop portion of that notebook cover. So it needs just a little extra stability, and this lightweight, or medium weight tearaway will help us to achieve that. And we'll just float it right underneath the hoop. You'll see how we do that in a little bit. Now, this one here, this is a wash away stabilizer. It is water soluble, it is fibrous. You do not want the plastic one. You want the fibrous water soluble stabilizer. This will be used for our pencil case, which has a vinyl window. And the reason for using a water soluble versus a tearaway is the vinyl window. We have a lot of stitching that's right around the outside of that vinyl window. And if we use a tearaway, you're likely to see it after you tear it away through the window, in your seams, and just even right around the window itself. If you use a wash away, it's going to be completely gone. Yes, you need to soak your item to get rid of it completely, but it'll just be gone, and then you'll never know there was any stabilizer in there to begin with, and it'll look like just like you sewed it rather than did it in embroidery, which is a wonderful thing. So this right here is your supplies that you are going to want to gather to do this. I did tell you some of them are optional, and we will go over that too as we go through the project itself. So let me get reset here and we will continue on. Now we're going to go over the steps that you need to take in order to prepare some pieces for your embroidery. There are a few sewing steps that we need to do here. And so what we're going to start with is we're going to start by making our piping. And so here, what I have, this is just a little sample. You need several pieces. You'll look in your instructions to see what size those pieces are. But this, I'm making mini piping. So during the supplies, I told you it doesn't really matter what size of piping you use. You could use like the purchase piping that you would get in a package. You could make your own piping with any really size of piping cord. You don't want the really fat stuff. We're talking just like normal piping. This right here is mini piping. I love mini piping. It adds just a tiniest bit of a little embellishment to just about anything and a little bit of tailoring, which is always really good. But this is a mini piping cord, so it's no more than about 1/8 of an inch wide. And so all you do here is you take your strip of your fabric and your piping cord. These strips are going in straight. They do not need to be cut on the bias. So normally we would make piping on the bias when you purchase. Your fabric is also cut on the bias, and that's because it needs to go around curves. All of this is going to be straight. Just cut your pieces straight and save your fabric. So right here we have that piping. And so all we do to create the piping is we just roll the fabric over the piping cord, get the piping cord snug into the fold, and then you stitch it slightly away from your piping cord. Don't stitch right next to your piping cord at this point when you make it. Stitch just slightly away, like a needle or two width away. Okay, and that's what this piece is right here. So this one is already done. And you can use, like I told you before, this machine, our Continental M17, comes with 2 different zipper feet. It comes with a regular zipper foot where you would just run the edge of the foot along the cord and then bump your needle over as far as you need to. And there's also this invisible zipper foot, which I told you has these little ridges, or not ridges, grooves in the bottom of it. Those grooves exactly fit, if I can get a hold of it here, those grooves exactly fit that cord. And so you can see they'll just slide right down through that cord. So it's a perfect size for this particular application, even though that isn't technically a mini piping foot. It's a zipper foot, invisible zipper foot, okay? So there's all kinds of ways you can use all kinds of feet, which is what I love about sewing. And in this case, that's just using one foot for another purpose. And it doesn't matter what a foot is called. If you can use it for that purpose, go for it. It's a fabulous thing. Now, once you get that piping cord done, what you're going to do is you're going to take that piping ruler that we talked about in your supplies. You're going to find the 1/4 inch groove. It has several grooves, which are different seam allowances. You're going to find the 1/4 inch groove, and you're just going to place your piping cord right into that groove like I have it here. Okay, so right into that groove. And then you're going to take your rotary cutter and you're just going to cut off the excess. And that will give you a piece of piping cord that has a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, which is what you want for all of our piping. Okay, now this piece right here that is attached to this fabric, this piece does have that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so right across here. That one does have the 1/4 inch. You can see where I started and where I finished here. Okay. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take those pieces of piping. You have a long piece of piping. That long piece is going to be set aside for later. And then you have 3 shorter pieces. One that's about 2 or 3 inches wide, 3 inches wide really. And then a couple more that are a little more than 6, maybe 7 inches wide. And you're going to take this right here. This is an inside pocket. And we're going to take our piping and we're going to sew it to one long side of an inside pocket. Okay, and that has been done here. This one is sewn down. Then you're going to take the lining for your inside pocket, which is this piece right here, and you are going to place it right sides together with the first one, aligning all of your raw edges all the way around. Then to stitch this, the easiest thing to do is to flip it over and stitch it so that you are stitching right on top of the first stitching line. Now I stitched mine in white, so you can't really see it on the back of this fabric, but it is there. So you would just stitch right on top of that line, still using the same foot for both of these steps, still using the same foot that you used to create your piping. Okay, and then you will come up with your pocket, which I have on our next board here. So this right here is those 2 pieces stitched together. So if we look at this still folded up, it's been pressed, so it's getting a little hard for me to fold up. But This is what you were just looking at, but it's been stitched all the way through the layers up at the top here. Then we would take this piece, you'll fold it open and press, and then you'll fold it again so that you have a pocket here that has the piping justified to the edge. It has a front and it has a lining. It just happens that our front and our lining are both the same fabrics. Okay. Now, once you get that done, you are going to find your sleeve and your sleeve lining, which are these pieces that are right here. Okay, and these are about 11.5 by 6. So you'll get those two pieces. You are going to place your pocket. And when I forgot one thing, there is one other thing that you can do here if you want to. This is optional. You could, on this pocket, you could top stitch right next to your stitching here. And it's totally optional whether or not you want to do that. It's more of a decorative thing than it is a functional thing on this particular project. Okay, but if you want to, you can. Then you're going to place the pocket to the sleeve, and then you're going to place the sleeve lining right sides together on top of that. So your pocket is sandwiched between these two layers. And your pocket is right side up. So this pocket is right side up. You may have a different color for your lining. If you've top stitched, one side may look better, but you want to pick your best side, and that will be right side up on top of the sleeve. And then your sleeve lining goes on top of that. Then you are going to stitch one long side. Now remember, you need a right pocket and a left pocket so that your notebook will fit in to the cover when you're finished. So make sure that when you stitch this, that you stitch one along the right-hand side and you stitch the other along the left-hand side. Okay? And then what you will wind up with is this right here. So this is our pocket attached to our sleeve. Okay, so this one happened to be stitched on the right-hand side. And when I open it, this is the right side of my pocket and my sleeve. And then again, you just open it and press it, and then you turn your lining to the back, justify the seam to the edge, and then press it really well again. And you should have one this way and one that's where the fold is on this side facing the other way. Okay? Then you're going to repeat this same process pretty much with a different sized piece. So this right here that I have pinned together, this is a long piece. It's put together exactly like the sleeve was for this. The pocket was for this one. It just is your pencil pocket for the front of your notebook cover. So this one, you do the same exact thing, okay? And then here, this is the back for our pencil pocket. So it's our pencil pocket back. There is only one. There is no lining to this. So you're just going to place, again, your pocket to your pocket back. And then you can pin these two pieces together. You can stitch them, like if you want to baste them around the edges, you can. Or you can just leave them just like this. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to pin mine together real quick so that I can keep them together. Okay, and then you will have your pencil pocket with its back, and you will have your two sleeves, and all of that will be done, and then we're ready to put those into your embroidered piece. You're in the hoop embroidery. Okay, now we have one more thing we need to do though before we move on to that embroidery, and that is to finish your lining. So this is your lining piece. It's an 11.5-inch square. What you're going to do is you are going to clean finish both sides of this, which just means that you are either going to go to your serger with like a 3-thread narrow overlock, doesn't really matter what stitch to be honest, with that, or to the sewing machine with a zigzag stitch. And you're going to stitch right near the edge. If you are serging, you're not going to cut anything off. You're just going to stitch with your seam going right over the edge of the fabric. So the raw edge of the fabric would be against the inside edge of the blade as you serge. Okay, and that'll finish both of the sides. Don't worry about the top and the bottom. They will be caught in seams. Okay, once we finish that, you will have your pencil pocket, your two sleeves, and your lining. Then what we'll do is we're going to let you finish all of that, and then we're going to gather everything else that we need. We're going to set up for embroidery, and I will meet you back here next week where we will continue on making our notebook cover.